even though this computer's battery is on its last legs, I had to take it up to the Apple store recently, and he basically said, "Yeah, your battery's dying, but my computer's a 2019 MacBook, so I can't just get it replaced in the shop. I have to send it out for 2 weeks. But I can't be without. I'm like a semi truck driver. I can't be without a truck for 2 weeks. What are
Yeah.
you talking about?"
It's rigged.
I'm sitting here going, "Son of a bitch, I gotta buy a new computer." And with that, we'll dive into the Revenue Cloud roundtable for this week. It looks like it's just going to be me and Micah. For those who don't know me, I'm John Garvins. I'm the owner and principal architect at Garvins Consulting. Clever name, I know. And I've been in the Salesforce quote to cash space for a while, going all the way back to just after the acquisition of SteelBrick by Salesforce in 2016. I was still an admin at the time and have spent most of my time in consulting. And now we're here, and I've got this, I guess, variety show of sorts for you interested in Revenue Cloud. And with me today is Micah Gerger.
Hey there, Micah Gerger. I'm the founder and CTO of Blue Robot Digital, Revenue Cloud and RevOps technology consulting firm. I've been in and out of the partner ecosystem a couple times, worked at Salesforce a couple times. Always happy to talk with John about some Revenue Cloud topics.
Absolutely. We worked at Salesforce around the same time for one of your stints there. So it's a small, small world, as most of you watching this know, because who the hell watches stuff like this? You do, people out there on the internet. Okay, today's topic is going to be a hot one. There's a lot of opinions on the matter floating around on the interwebs, LinkedIn, Reddit, Salesforce account executives, partners, etc. And that is, should I migrate to Salesforce Revenue Cloud? And it's a big question, and it's one that Micah and I want to discuss today. There are a lot of myths, misconceptions, and much misinformation out there about the topic. I also love alliteration, by the way. So we're going to start with the announcement, the semi-official announcement from the Salesforce Ben blog that Salesforce CPQ is end of sale. Now, anybody who's in the know knows that Salesforce CPQ has effectively been an end of sale-ish or on its way for years. There have been very few meaningful updates in recent years. The attention has clearly been elsewhere, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about going from Salesforce CPQ to Revenue Cloud and some ways you can approach that. We'll talk about other CPQ tools, custom tools you might have. Spreadsheet people, I know you're out there. If you're having to do your quoting in a spreadsheet, we're going to talk to you as well. And then we'll finish with a discussion on proofs of concept and advisory services to prep for this. So diving in, the CPQ Salesforce CPQ end of sale announcement. Most people found out about this through the Salesforce Ben blog post that came out probably 2 months ago now. And after that, there was just a flurry of uh, of thought leaders who all of a sudden have an opinion on the matter after not saying anything for a decade. They now all of a sudden
Some
want to
really
get.
great AI hot takes.
Yes, ChatGPT was very busy a couple months ago with this announcement. For me, I'll give the first swing at a hot take on this topic. The first thing I would recommend to everybody is calm the fuck down. It's okay. You have runway if you're a Salesforce CPQ customer. Remember that software goes through a cycle. Once you've got the software up and running out in the real world, you're going to eventually replace that with something else. It happened with, DOS and Windows 3.1 and Windows 95. We all go through new iterations of stuff. But it starts with the end of sale announcement, which just means we're not selling it anymore. There are a lot of nuances around that, so make sure you talk to your Salesforce account executive if you're interested in migrating a Revenue Cloud. There's my cover my ass safe harbor slide. Then we get to our end of support, and then we get to our end of life, which is when we actually put it in the coffin, put it underground. It's off. It's not used anymore. End of support is the next phase. But personally, I predict we've got a solid 5 to 10 years before it's off. And there are many reasons for this. Micah, I'd love to hear your
I mean,
thoughts.
if you look at I believe it was 2015, Salesforce introduced Lightning Experience. Uh, I have three clients that I work with right now that are actively primarily using Classic still. So,
Workflow rules.
yep, workflow rules. I mean, CPQ is so ingrained. It's such a core aspect of any implementation that's utilizing it. They're not just going to make it disappear. And in some ways, it actually makes life a little bit easier, even for active implementations, of which I am part of one currently.
Same.
Um, and and it's not as much of a moving target. I mean, if you look at RCA or other, evolving tools, especially within Salesforce, you get three big releases each year, which is great. They're rich in new features, but when you're doing implementations that take at least, 4-ish months on the low side up until the 12, 16-month plus timeline, you're talking 1 to 3 releases that you have to worry about disrupting or changing what you're designing to versus what you're building. That delta from design to release is different, and it can be hard to manage. That's one of the things with RCA. That's a key consideration for new adopters, especially those on the SI side who are trying to estimate, and customers who are trying to figure out, hey, if we move this direction, how long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? We don't have a large body of active or completed live implementations to draw from. We don't have the historical data to really have good, clean estimates, but also the product's evolving very quickly. And when it's evolving very quickly, there are new problems, there are regression bugs, there are things that weren't out of box before, but now are, that you can take advantage of. And so all of those things factored in make it very challenging to to estimate. But with CPQ, as it stands today, it's stable. It's not being sold net new. But like you said, John, I mean, that's not a new thing. Back in my most recent stint at Salesforce, we were already spending most of our time working through a decision making kind of decision tree type process of, does it make sense for you to even look at Salesforce CPQ and start implementing it now? Or are there parts of, at the time, subscription management or RLM, which is now RCA? Can you start taking advantage of those to the extent that it doesn't make sense to implement CPQ? So having that, like having both being actively sold, makes the decision-making solution selection that much more challenging.
Yes.
It's also a lot more for the development teams to manage at Salesforce. So it makes sense to
And
say,
the support
hey,
teams to support.
correct, we're going to continue doing trust updates only. Make sure it will still work. We're not taking it away from anyone. And so, yeah, it really kind of seems like a lot of people, wanted to get some eyes on their profiles or get some engagement by, a hot take on something that's really not a huge deal, unless you are dying to buy Salesforce CPQ now, and now you can't. I don't think
Well,
there's a large body of people in that.
no, I did
It's
have a prospect, a former employer of mine actually, that was considering buying CPQ at the end of the year, and they were going back and forth, and they had a sweetheart deal on pricing, nice Q4 discounts and everything, and now they can't buy it. So they definitely aren't going to buy Revenue Cloud. It's overkill for what they need, and and they're cheap and it's more expensive. So there you go. That's not going to happen. But the support of two products is very difficult. Anybody who's done a migration, even think about your for the customers watching your migration from whatever legacy CRM tool to Salesforce. That was a painful, arduous process, and then you got to run both systems in parallel to make sure that you've got parity there. Supporting multiple systems is very difficult and time consuming. Also, when you see posts like that, make sure when you do click through to see who's saying it, are they selling? What are they selling? They're selling something. We're selling, Micah and I are selling something. We're both consultants. We would love to get your business and help you with a lot of these decisions. So, shameless plug right there. Blue Robot Digital and Garvin's Consulting, happy to help you with your Revenue Cloud needs. Reach out to us on our websites. But everybody's selling something. Are they being honest about it? So a lot of it is just a bunch of product bashing from competing products that are trying to get some skin in the game. And they're sitting here on the bench going, let us play, Salesforce, please, let us play. It's our shot. So you've got them posting your AI generated clickbaity LinkedIn one sentence paragraph lame copywriting posts about this stuff when the reality is everybody can calm down a little bit. You have plenty of time. You have years to make your purchasing decisions, figure out what's best for your company. Any more in technology, we need to pump the brakes. AI too, same thing. Pump the brakes a little bit, slow down, come up with a strategy before you start running. Because if you want to get to New York, you're strategy and your plan is going to be very different if you're starting in LA or if you're starting in London. Um, so that brings us to, okay, I made the choice. Micah, I'm a customer. I decided I'm going to move from Salesforce CPQ to Revenue Cloud. There's an easy button for this, right? I click a button and it's like the flow converter that takes my workflow rules and process builder and it makes it all flows. And then it's done. I don't even have to do anything. Is that true?
No. So
I agree.
I know. So I can tell you on good authority, there are people at Salesforce who have been now for years thinking about and working through and planning for ways that, from a product Salesforce product perspective, they can make life easier and make it simpler to, you know, migrate, quote unquote, from Salesforce CPQ
Yeah.
into RCA. Is there an easy button? No. Is there a lightning conversion experience or some corollary there? No. But even if there was, that still doesn't alleviate what it usually accounts for the majority, or at least a good half of any program, which is the testing, the regression testing, the user acceptance testing, and then the release process. Even if you could easy button build it, you're talking about the core processes by which your
Yeah. The
company,
circulatory system of the business.
yes, acquires your business, books it, and pays it and recognizes it, and so on. So um, there's no easy button. There will be tools coming, I am sure. Since the product's evolving still pretty rapidly, I don't think Salesforce has prioritized any kind of like immediate automation to do that, which makes sense. And honestly, a big part of the play for Revenue Cloud or transition to Revenue Cloud is is a bet by Salesforce on the partner ecosystem. It's
Yes.
kind of a shared bet that, okay, if
Massive
we
bet.
if we introduce this, much more mature, much more sophisticated architecture that can handle more use cases, that can handle more scale, that's more extensible, albeit it's much heavier to configure. We're betting that the partner ecosystem will step up to the challenge, will learn how to do this, and will take some of the hits with us to help customers get successful. So that's very real, and it makes sense to me that there is no, convert to CPQ process out there. But that's not to say there won't be tools to come. I think there will.
Right.
That said, there are other partner ecosystem, partners, SIs building their own proprietary tools or accelerators. And then there are certainly companies like Prodly and Gearset and Capato, I think, as well, that
Mhm.
are, focusing in on providing products or accelerators for transforming what you can. That said, there are a lot of parts to that type of migration. And it's not just like my price rules here become my pricing elements in a pricing procedure there,
No.
or my product rules here become my product configuration
Yeah.
rules there. They're very different technical constructs. One's data, one's more metadata and new types of data. So since that, even though there are corollaries, it doesn't mean that they're all going to map and sequence on a one-to-one basis. So even with the right technology tools, there's not a clean way to automate it. So I mean, that's just the metadata and kind of backend setup. There's obviously also the transactional data that's really important to actually
Yeah.
migrate over, particularly if you're doing renewals and amendments, with which most businesses are doing.
Right. Yeah, it's one thing to have similar functions. At the end of the day, I need to start with the list price and end with the net price. I need some sort of automations to do it. And yeah, as you said, there's corollaries. I have conditions and I have actions that I need to take based on those conditions. But how those are constructed and how we need to think about those are very different. Plus, there's also the bigger question, let's say you're a Salesforce customer who implemented CPQ 5 to 10 years ago. Does your business run the same way today as it did 5 to 10 years ago? God, I hope not. Most clients that I work with have significant things that they need to improve in their business processes. I have significant things I need to improve in my business process. Although, as a one-man shop, it's much easier to control those things. However, people need to think about do we want to do things differently? We did this in CPQ. It ended up not being the greatest idea, or it costs all sorts of hangups, or we don't want to price like that anymore. It could be pricing strategy changes, product configuration changes. There are a lot of changes. These product managers are getting paid a full salary. They're not just going to sit there and do nothing. They're going to make changes even if they don't need to. You get that fancy pricing advisory company that comes in. You paid McKinsey a whole bunch of money. They came in and said, "We think you should increase prices. Here's an invoice for $500,000." And you paid it, and now you say you want to increase prices. Okay, well, to implement that new strategy, do you have to totally change the way that you price? Used to be price times quantity gets you the total, but now we got this whole, uh, what is it? Rube Goldberg machine that we got to run all these numbers through, and then it spits out the same result. But hey, I justified my MBA from a fancy university. Um, we got to think about those different things as we're cutting over too. So thinking about it not just as cutting over one tool to another tool. I was using a Milwaukee circular saw, and now I'm using a DeWalt. I have to think, do I still need to use a saw? Do I still need to cut boards? Or am I doing something completely different? So thinking of it as a functional transformation as well as a technological transformation is going to help it tremendously when you're approaching this purchasing decision.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And, from a consulting perspective, as a curmudgeonly consultant myself, I share in some of the sentiments. A lot of a lot of us are like, what's the good reason if I'm a CPQ customer today? Like, why would I just
Yeah,
switch over? I just spent 3 million for whatever the number is to get live with CPQ. Why the hell do I have to go switch over now? And the answer is you don't.
right.
You really don't. If like you're saying, John, if there are real advantages that you can draw from making that transition, great. Start your analysis. Getting onto core data model, that's great. Being able to extend out to additional routes to market, additional channels, that's great. Being able to more easily take advantage of Agentforce if you have some important use cases there, that's great as well. Agentforce is a little more challenging with CPQ as a managed package, depending on what you're trying to do,
Right.
than using core objects. So if you look at all of the reasons why you would transition from one tool set to another, um, and it makes sense, there you go. But if you're looking at it just someone's forcing me off of CPQ into RCA, what's in it for me? Maybe there's a lot, maybe there isn't. Maybe you should just stick with CPQ and continue cranking the wheel at your business for the foreseeable future. And I think over time, if you don't have like a clear business value or business objective that is met by making that transition, you can be working on continuing to evaluate that process, continuing to evaluate what's coming out with every release, because there's a lot with every release. I mean, I think we did the last roundtable was talking about
Summer
the summer
25.
25 release,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of really, that was maybe the best release yet.
Yeah.
There's starting to be some real inertia in terms of value for all types of customers and use cases, and even for the most part checking off a lot of the, even from a consultant perspective, checking off a lot of the key capabilities that we expect to be able to deliver easily for our customers. So I think you don't have to transition, but you need to
And
look at it like any other migration.
And this is where we'll talk about it later as well, but proofs of concept can really come into play here because the idea of parity, the definition of parity differs based on who's saying it. Software companies like to say that their new product is at parity with their old product. Meanwhile, the boots on the ground are going, like hell it is. What about this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing? All of these are on every single project I've ever had, and those aren't anywhere to be seen in this. Oh, you got to make that on your own. Wait, what? Every customer is going to want this. What are you talking about? So make sure that when you're making these purchasing decisions, you've reached parity for your business. The software vendor may tell you that parity has been reached, and maybe it has, and maybe it's even been surpassed in a lot of cases. Great, fantastic. I'm really happy when that happens. But if those key use cases that you need to hit for your business have not yet been met, maybe our decision is to wait. Waiting is a valid decision. Sometimes the decision is now, sometimes it's later, sometimes it's we'll see. And I think a lot of customers are going to find themselves in the position of we'll see. I like the direction I see the product going. There's more and more stuff with each release. This last release was really exciting. However, we've got this thing here that we need to solve, and we can't solve it yet with that tool, so we're just going to have to keep driving on. And this is where even when customers implement CPQ for the first time or any quoting tool for the first time, some of those deeper questions haven't been fully addressed, and that's what causes a lot of the drama on these implementations.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to think of like good analogies. I don't know that I've landed on one yet, but I think like the closest thing I can think of is just like you said, say I want a grill. Like I can go to the store and I can buy a grill, and that grill now may have, a thermometer add-on, and it may have, may be able to slot into an outdoor kitchen or whatever. But it's a grill. I can put it in my truck and I can take it home. And maybe that's CPQ. And RCA is okay. I order a grill. I do it. I order it online maybe. Now it shows up in a big box, but it's not a full grill that's built together. But also, it's not just directions on how to put it together, which is my main annoyance in life, especially with furniture. Like you can't buy anything. It's everything's a kit.
Yeah,
I want an end table. I get a kit to go build an end table. But
right.
so that's not what we're talking about. I would say it's beyond that. It's I get a kit to build an end table, but it also comes with tools and additional materials where I can go build an entire bedroom set
Yeah.
from it if I want to, and if that if I have the
The
time and capacity to do it.
the metaphor I've been working on, I'm gonna stretch it a little bit further. Maybe this will help. The metaphor that I use is you bought Revenue Cloud, you bought a Home Depot. When you bought CPQ, you bought maybe one of those prefab houses or where most of the walls are prefab and you got the blueprint, you just put it up and all that. I worked on one of those when I was right after high school. Here's a blueprint. We're gonna make 20 of these houses, whatever. So there's some customizations of paint and trim and all this other stuff, but it's mostly the same kind of house. And there's a lot of prefab parts. But with Revenue Cloud, you bought Home Depot. You have all of the tools and supplies that you need to build a house. But if you've never built a house before, good luck. If you've never architected and constructed a house and you don't know, do we pour the foundation first or do we start working on the roof first? You need to know the sequencing of how we need to roll these things out based on the best practices. We need to know that I need to put the studs up before I can run the wiring because the wiring goes through the studs or any of these nuances that you'd really only know when you build a house. That's kind of where we're at. You can build whatever the hell you want. That's one of the beauties of Revenue Cloud is its interoperability, its scalability, its customizability. But with that, the trade-off is you got to really know what you're doing in order to do it well. Which to all the people out there concerned that I just learned CP, I saw this in Reddit the other day. I just learned CPQ, I got the certification. Is my experience wasted? Did I just waste all the time? No, absolutely not. You did not. Your experience is completely valid and is actually going to help you ramp on Revenue Cloud much faster because the core principles, the names and the words are going to be a little different. It's not an option anymore, it's a component. It's not a feature anymore, it's a category. But the principle of bundling, putting multiple products together using attribution to collect data points from sellers that drive pricing or whatever else, those principles and concepts will remain the same, right? So if you think about it, not like, oh, I learned wrestling versus I learned jujitsu. No, no, no. You learned grappling. So there's interchangeability of the principles, and you're going to end up with a deeper, richer understanding of the quote to cash process because you'll see two different tools. That was one of my biggest gaps at the beginning of my career in this space is that the only thing I've ever worked with is Salesforce CPQ. I don't know Oracle CPQ. I don't know Conga CPQ. I don't know any of these other CPQ tools, which is limiting in my perspective. I couldn't offer as much variety and perspective as somebody who's seen more tools and been on more projects, whatever. So rest assured that your experience is still valid. I would still recommend people get a CPQ certification because there are 6,000 to 7,000 CPQ customers who are going to be for the next 5+ years, and they need help too.
Again, I mean, John and I both are actively working on net new CPQ implementations. So I
Yep.
couldn't agree more. I think that's something that RCA will put under a magnifying glass, which is the domain knowledge is king.
Yes.
If you pair that domain knowledge with a technologist mindset. I think we've talked about this maybe in one of the others, but
Mhm.
you have to, in your consultants, the people that are you're signing on the dotted line, sometimes very large numbers to help build out these tools. They have to have domain knowledge. They can't show up with a blank piece of paper, and they have to be technologists, meaning since this is a new tool, they have to have the mindset of I'm a problem solver. I have a much larger bag of tools now. I have domain knowledge where I can understand what the business is trying to accomplish and or at least be able to ask the right questions to get down to exactly what the business needs to be able to do.
Yeah.
And now I've got a much larger bag of tools to go accomplish that, and I will work it out. And so,
Yeah.
like, there's a great kind of ecosystem among a lot of at least the higher level consultants that have that kind of mindset. And John's like, you've done a huge, you know, everyone in our space owes you a huge debt of gratitude through some of the channels you've created because everyone like is working together across companies as it's more like science now than like direct,
Totally.
competitors going, oh, I figured this out, I'm not going to share it. We're all kind of collaborating and working together as a technology community. And that's really important. You're going to see a lot of, and we see a lot of these even just on LinkedIn. We hear about them through our Salesforce account executive friends and RVPs. There are firms out there that are going to tell you they can implement RCA
Yep.
for under 80K in 2.5 months, or crazier numbers than that, and it's just not true. And the scary thing for me is everyone who's been in this space for a while has played the cleanup game
Yep.
for one or all
Most.
of the big four consulting firms and other big firms. And I think I don't know if we want to get into this now, John, but like to me, the importance of who you work with from an SI perspective is so much different, and it's greater than it was with CPQ. CPQ we've all re-implemented because it was an application where you can intercede on this, you can customize that, but there are best practices,
There are guardrails in
there
place
are
too.
guardrails, there are things that like you shouldn't do. That's the wrong tool for the job because there's this whole waterfall of impacts if you do that. And so we've all seen those. I think with RCA, you have more tools, there's more flexibility, extensibility, interoperability, pick your buzzword, to be able to go put bad decisions in play. Um, and if you don't have the domain knowledge, if you don't have
Yeah.
the consulting skills to push back on, well, can't we just ask our user to this, or can't we leverage AI to do that and then focus our time on this? Those types of skills are more important now and not less, since the tool is more of a platform and there's so many different ways to implement it. That on top of the fact that now that it's on core, there's a much broader pool of people who have the base level skills to go in there and be dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Previously, like if you haven't gone through Salesforce CPQ training or Salesforce billing or whatever, even Conga's going through the same kind of process right now, by the way, as well. But if you haven't gone through that specific training, you can't really get in there quickly and implement effectively. You have to at least, like, there's a base level knowledge that you need. With RCA, that's the case, but also you're working on standard quote, standard opportunity, standard contract, standard order,
Hmm.
standard asset data models. So there are a lot of organizations that are like, bing, we're in the RCA business now. We have a whole team of offshore devs that we can just go put on this, and
Yep.
everything's cheap and it will work. And the fact is that domain knowledge is critical, and that technology mindset is even more important.
Well, you even saw it with CPQ, more on the technical side. I mean, the number of times we've seen triggers on the quote line object, flows on the quote line object, process builder, workflow, which in the very first iterations of the product was best practice because all the calculations were in Apex. But then once it switched over to all of our client-side JavaScript stuff, that broke everything. And you don't know you're implementing a bad solution. You go, well, it works. Yes, it does not error out. There's a big difference between it works and it doesn't error. It doesn't throw an error. And many times you can not throw an error for a while until we've seen it. Your CPQ implementation comes to a screeching halt because you got too many DMLs happening, or you're running into row locks, all sorts of different stuff that happens. It just hit a breaking point. So the having someone on your team, even if you're hiring an internal person, ensure that as a Salesforce customer, have someone who's done this before on your team to hold your internal stakeholders accountable and help them think through these challenging business processes, but also to keep the consultants honest and to keep Salesforce honest. Having an accountability partner in this journey is going to be critical, regardless of what you're migrating from and you're going to Revenue Cloud, or if you're going to a different tool. Maybe you say, Deal Hub gave me a sweetheart deal, and we're going to move from CPQ to Deal Hub. Okay, fine. You still need somebody with domain expertise about quote to cash to help you through that process. Also, as a quick aside with the whole easy button, people are going to sell you software that's an easy button to cut over. What they fail to account for, all of those products assume it's an out-of-the-box implementation following best practices with a very simple product and pricing structure that has no customization whatsoever. And what percentage of CPQ projects have you worked on, Micah, that have all four of those checkboxes checked?
I haven't worked on one yet, so maybe,
Same.
yeah.
I have one that's very close. It's very close, and it's because the particular client doesn't know anything about the domain, and I knew everything about the domain. Well, not everything, there's so much to know, but I know a lot about the domain, and I just told him do it this way. And he's a great client, and he says, okay, that's fine. And the number of times they've just stopped doing silly things in their internal processes because he goes, oh, that's how it's supposed to work? Yeah, that makes more sense than the way we do it. Yeah, I'll just tell him the product can't do it. Okay, great. He's the one that I haven't emailed since October of 2023
Yeah, well, I mean,
or
and
two.
with RCA too, and I get we keep talking about RCA. Maybe one of these times we need to talk about Conga too, because
Sure.
Conga has gone. Conga's doing the exact same thing in kind of the opposite way, in that they're moving everything off platform rather than onto core. But it's the same targets exist in terms of being able to support enterprise, being able to support a larger universe of use cases and so on, being API first. But particularly, with both RCA and these much more mature tools, I mean, the desire to get live right away, hit that deadline, do that, you
Which
know,
is
uh,
completely made up and pulled out of thin air for every customer I've ever worked with.
I like to think of that as like big box movie making. Mission Impossible 9 is going to come out July 4th of 2026. Who's in it? Hopefully Tom Cruise. What's it about? I don't know, but we've got a
Revenue
screenwriter.
Cloud in 2 months.
Who's going to direct it? I don't know. We'll get somebody. We've got a few ideas in mind, but it's coming out July 4th. So like that kind of thought process isn't going to work. But most importantly, even when that's the target, which is, to be fair, realistically, a lot of times there's a ticking clock on the current solution, and you don't want to have to license
Sure.
again, sign up for another year because of a 1 month gap. So like, there's some real drivers there, but that causes some real long-term side effects in the form of, hey, we're designing for our requirements on our desk right now only,
Yeah.
and because we got to get live, like we just got to get this done right now. And when that happens, the tool becomes impossible to maintain, and it's not built to extend out or scale. It's just we've got to get it done right now, but maybe it functions. And so like I always try and think of functionality, maintainability, and scalability or extensibility. It's kind of three pieces that need to be in balance. And with that big blockbuster style, implementation, or with that, super overly aggressive implementation timeline for something like RCA, you're going to get a giant mess
Yeah.
to maintain and to try and figure out. And especially if it's a consulting firm that just, offshores or near shores or has, it doesn't matter where the team is,
A bunch
but
of rookies.
they're not in, yeah, maybe a bunch of rookies or just whoever's available that may be really strong technologists, but don't know anything about the space, but they're on the bench. Um, if there's a gap between them and the business and they don't understand, they're getting the requirements and just building off in a hole and there's not feedback, or if it's just too much of an aggressive timeline and it's not the business being engaged or the technology team inside the business being engaged, RCA is not a tool to just release and learn post go live. The internal team, I think about this a lot as I'm just trying to build even a demo or troubleshoot something for one of my partners. Um, there are so many ways to try and release something new and do damage. And so when it's that much more of a sophisticated tool, and when there's new technology constructs altogether, um, like context definitions
Yeah.
and interfaces, all
Decision
these different types
tables.
of procedures and decision tables that all need to be synced and networked. If you look at the advanced configurator or constraint builder or whatever it's going to be called here soon, I'm
Don't
sure.
worry, they'll rebrand it 5 times by
Yep.
January.
Or by the end of this call, possibly. All of like the advanced configurator, you have to link your constraint model to actual product records. So there's all these syncs that need to happen for basic things to work. And if you just are slapping something out there, or if it's some consulting firm that's just trying to feel around in the dark completely, or is completely detached from the internal IT team, even if you do hit that date, now you're in a world of hurt and you don't even realize it because we're trying to release new products and now all of a sudden the product catalog is empty. uh, we have no product catalogs or we have no products in any of our product catalogs in production. What just happened? And so that's where it gets scary. That's where can't advise enough to not just sign on the dotted line with um, a logo,
Right.
and to be really judicious with who is going to be on the project and
Which specific human
humans.
beings will be on your
Yes.
project. Ask
And
for resumes.
the there's a lot of great partners out there.
Yes, tons of them.
I'm just me, but I have a lot of partners to work with. And there's a lot of them are really strong and really honest, and they'll be open about who they have. Ask those questions because you've invested a lot and will be investing a lot in RCA
Yeah.
again, or Conga or whatever, whichever of these new modern enterprise scale tools are. I mean, you've got to look at who is implementing because there have been too many messes, even with simpler applications, and it gets really scary to think about
The
people
number
with
of red
core
accounts.
dev skills and just going in there and banging out a bunch of customizations, not even knowing or caring about what's coming up on the roadmap here in the next month. Being
Hmm.
plugged in with the product team who have been great about being open about what's coming and about helping advise through tough design decisions since it is a rapidly evolving product. You've got to be working with customers that are or with partners that are plugged in with those teams because it is a moving target. And even if you can get live, you may have messes lurking under the covers you don't even know about.
Yeah, you want to go live and be healthy. It's like you don't want to be, hey, we're live, but we're on life support, but we're live. That's stressful for everybody, and we want your system to be implemented well and to be stable and all these other things. If you need, like Micah said, it's just him and it's just me. That's our companies right now. We're very, very deliberately keeping it small by design. However, if you need introductions to those other bigger partners, people that we trust, we're happy to make those introductions as well. I don't want or need all of the business that's out there for Revenue Cloud or CPQ. There's more work than I could
Right.
do in many lifetimes. So I don't need or want that. But if I can help connect two people together and make sure like, okay, this is going to be a really good partner for you. I'm happy to help with partner selection too. I'm sure you are as well.
I've got a
Yeah.
customer as well that is very open to putting together a tiger team of people from all over from different firms
Oh, that's
and saying,
cool.
okay, I care about who versus over, who the individuals are
Uh-huh.
over who their company is. And I don't care where you work. I want to know who you are. And if you're really good, I'm going to build my own team. And so
Yeah.
that's an interesting idea. And I think it's, well supported by a lot of the best people I know are working at, boutique size firms. There are some really good ones out there. We're happy to put you in touch with them if you may be interested. But also, there's a lot of solo independent people like John and myself who, again, there's way more project work than I could ever keep up with. But I'm not looking to build some large SI. I want to do
No.
interesting work, and I want to, be a part of successful projects
Yeah.
and help connect people to successful teams. So that's really not a bad idea if you are willing to do some added due diligence and go, I've heard good things about this person. I know they're at this firm. What would it look like to, contract them directly or a couple of specific people? But I think the most important thing is, again, that technologist mindset, the domain knowledge, and general technical aptitude. Um, with AI tools, there's more and more AI tools out there. There are firms that are using AI to like build metadata for you. Hey, go create these fields for me. That's very interesting. Also a little terrifying at the
It's
same
cool
time.
and terrifying at the same time.
Um,
It's
like
exciting generally.
yes. And so that's great. If that's an accelerator for, delivery and time to value, that's great. But it's also not a replacement for the right people. It's just like you're seeing this in sales too, I think. Now, it's not just a technology thing. I know salespeople that are dear friends of mine that are
We
like,
love them very
I can,
much.
that I, that are like, I can literally just play golf all the time now. I don't have to do shit. I can cover my territory and I can hit my numbers because I'm getting next best action recommendations. I can literally hit what I need to, like on the practice screen in the morning. And then in between, after 9 holes, I check in and see how my team's doing. And no judgments there. Good for you. But I also know people that are salespeople that are like, you can fire everyone else because I can now cover everything with these tools. I'm going to go crush. And that will optimize based on what tools they've got available. And that's interesting too. I mean, there are a lot of people who are killers on the sales side that are chomping at the bit to use these tools to cover more ground, not to do less. And so it's going to be interesting to see, like, we're seeing shifts in the consulting space as well, because of some of these tools. Same
Sure.
thing's going to happen in salespeople in the
Uh,
sales world, where those killers are out there and they're going to be taking your territory if you're just on the golf course.
I'm making notes of other topics that we could talk about. Choosing a consulting firm could be a topic. Building your own consulting firm if you're the customer that wants to just, hey, I'm just going to go put together the A team. I'm going to find the best of the best, and I'm going to put together like the SEAL Team Six of Revenue Cloud peeps to get me.
By the way, that's who the consultants want to be on too. Like,
Yes,
I
yeah.
can think of a few people, John, you included, it would be cool
Like, let's
to
just
see
be
what
on a
we can
project
do
together. That would be
together
awesome,
on a project. Like
dude.
that would
That'd be
be
sick. Oh man, that'd be so fun. I just like when I left my last role, I told somebody I was very stressed at the time, and I just said, I just want to work with my friends. And that's kind of my vision. That's also kind of the Slack workspace we have, but we, anyway. Using AI to scale or not, because like for solo consultants like us, I can use AI tools to scale without hiring. Like I don't need to. I can be as long as I can close deals and I can bill hours and I can do my project work. But like using all of these AI tools, that's another conversation we can have. Let's move it along to we could probably bucket everything else. Okay, we talked at length about Salesforce CPQ. If you're moving from another CPQ tool or a custom tool or a spreadsheet, We see you, spreadsheet people. We know you're out there. Uh, Moving from another CPQ tool is going to be very similar talking points to moving from Salesforce CPQ. The great thing about having an existing CPQ tool is that your data is already very well structured, both on the product side and on the transactional side. You've been using products in some sort of bundling structure, some sort of price waterfall-ish kind of a thing for many, many years. That is giving you a consistent data set that's clean and trustworthy over many years, hopefully, if that implementation has been done right. Is that going to make it easier and simpler to move to Revenue Cloud? Yes, in the same way that it's going to be easier and simpler to move from CPQ to Revenue Cloud if you're using some of these software vendors that are going to help with those migrations. It doesn't make it easy or simple, though. It's still going to be difficult and complicated. So, understanding and accepting that that is just the reality and that this is not an easy shift where we're not just moving from one house to another. We have to build the other house first. And there's some things about our current house we might not like. I love how the physical architecture world works as a metaphor for, I just tell people I build digital structures. Anyway, let's dive into the custom tools and spreadsheets though, because this is where I've seen some really impressive custom tools over the years. Customers have invested tremendous amounts of money in their own proprietary solutions. I'm working on one now. They have this order management system, whether it's direct sales, it's channel partners, they're going into this system, they're making their orders, they're placing them, it's going downstream into their downstream systems for billing and usage tracking and all that other stuff. And now they're going to slowly move first direct sales into Salesforce. Then they want to move their partner sales into Salesforce as well, ideally with Revenue Cloud. Although we should also talk about Revenue Cloud and Commerce Cloud playing together because Salesforce is saying, well, for your partner stuff, Commerce will be better because of the experience piece. And they're going, yeah, but now that's two tools. And I'm saying the same thing. It's, well, can't we use the APIs? And that's another topic we should add for another roundtable. Um, but with your custom tools, think about the reason that you're thinking about Revenue Cloud in the first place is probably because you hit a wall with what you're able or willing to do with your current custom tool. There are functions that we need, or there's time to value that we need that we're just not getting. In my client's case, it takes them 4 to 6 months to get a new product up and running in their system because there's a bunch of disparate systems and a lot of different players, and some of them have went on to new jobs and this, that, and the other thing. So it takes a while to get a product and pricing up and running. Changing it takes almost as long. So that's a big frustration on the administrative side. And then on the sales side, it's clunky. You see the system, you go, hey, Windows 95, it's nice to see you again. It's one of those. How would you think about the custom tools?
So, I mean, in general, what I like is the build versus buy question to begin with
I
is
can go
always
over time, by the
interesting.
way. I got time if you can go over.
Okay, yeah, me too.
Okay, cool.
So the build versus buy question has always been an interesting one. I
Hmm.
think,
It's getting more
but I would,
difficult.
yes, what I would say, but look at the Amazon, their AWS and Cisco, so the big, really strong tech shops that are like, hey, we've got great developers in-house and we have the right platforms. Why would we not just go build this on our own?
Fair
And
question.
it's a great question. And my answer is maybe you should. But when you buy software from Salesforce or from Conga or from a software company, even though the first slide usually says safe harbor, make your purchasing decisions based on what's currently available, my real answer to why buy versus build is you're buying the roadmap. If your devs right in house are building your CPQ tool, they're probably building it for what you need today. They're probably not building it to be an extensible application to handle a universe of use cases that may pop up over time. That's what the product companies are doing. So if you want to become a product company and think from that perspective, if you have engineers and developers and architects that are going to approach it from that perspective, and if it's cost effective for you, maybe go give it a shot. I happen to know many software companies who have tried to bake CPQ into their own
Oh.
core offerings and failed miserably. And then said, hey, well, this isn't worth it. Let's not do that. But again, it's a mindset thing. I think with RCA, and particularly if you're coming from a custom homegrown solution, Um, there may be some real clear corollaries in terms of what you're doing here versus what you can do in RCA. And to your point, there are probably some real drivers like um, maybe you want to take advantage of some of the AI tools that are out there. It's hard to leverage a lot of the AI tools if you've got all these disparate systems with different data structures and you have to try and tie it all together or aggregate it into some place that the AI that can feed your AI models. If you get it in one place, maybe that's your driver. In any case, you may have clear corollaries for how you're doing things in your homegrown solution that you can just build out into RCA. But there may also be industry best practices or that domain knowledge that has gone into building out the product where you go, yeah, we could do it that way, but this way kind of seems to make more sense or opens up some doors for us. So, like to me, it comes back to the question of why are you making the transition to begin with?
Mhm.
But also, it coming from a custom tool may mean you're less bound by any kind of by any kind of limitations from how a product works, and maybe not informed at all by general process best practices. So you're still going to want to go through that process evaluation to decide just because we can go custom build this because RCA is more of a platform and less of a check a box and a bunch of automation happens doesn't mean you necessarily should.
Right. And then there's something to be learned from, okay, well, enough, there's 7,000 customers on CPQ and they all have that checkbox that does all that stuff afterwards, thinking here, order creation, contracting, renewals, amendments, whatever. There's probably a reason that they're doing it that way. Now, are there gaps in the way that those processes work in CPQ? Sure. Does it work for every business? No. And some businesses have to customize those processes. But that's why the domain knowledge is so important and why if you're on the technical side, the consulting side, admin side like us, you're like, should I even bother with CPQ? Sure, still go do it because it's going to help you understand the domain. And that's the key piece. Um, I think the same types of principles here apply for our spreadsheet folks out there who are still quoting in an Excel spreadsheet version 76.4v5 that Bob has on his computer and shares with people, and you're not quite sure that it's the right version and it's super old. And some of the formulas don't quite work the way you'd expect, but I don't know how they work, so I guess I'll just
Jim from
trust.
sales is retired, but we can still call him if we have questions.
Yes. Oh, yeah, one of those. That's really good. For the spreadsheet folks, you're probably in a sense, and you're in the best spot to move to a product like Revenue Cloud or another CPQ tool, quoting tool, whatever, depending on what you need from the tool, which is where it goes back to what do you need to do as a business, and then you back into your tools and tool selection based on that. A hammer is great, but if I need a hole, it's going to give me a really rough looking hole. Um, so your spreadsheet folks are almost invariably going to get a big step up moving to a structured process. Biggest problems our spreadsheet folks have is inconsistent business process. Nobody's towing the line. They're making their own versions. There's some sort of spreadsheet jock that changes things because they know where the formulas are. They can do whatever. And then those customers are also the ones who are doing approval processes by sending emails back and forth, which has no auditability and or at least very difficult auditability. So they'll benefit almost universally from some sort of structured tool and some sort of process to that the tool is based on. So lots of bright lights on the horizon for the spreadsheet folks because the tools could probably do as much, if not more, than your spreadsheet can, and make life easier for your sales reps, which will make them much happier and theoretically sell more. Anything to add?
No, other than going back to our product configurator, I just looked at Slack and
Uh-oh.
shout out to JM Tremblay from the cloud update and Elysian, I think, is that now?
Yeah, Elysian.
Elysian. Sounds like the product configurator did get rebranded by the end
Did
of this call to product configurator with a constraint builder. It's no longer advanced configurator. So we're going with that now.
That's
Uh,
hilarious that we joked about it and it fucking happened right here on this call. Oh, that's also a very long name. So what I've learned, if I've learned anything about Salesforce rebrands, every rebrand takes a word out. So we've got product configurator with a constraint builder. I'm going to go with the final version being product builder.
Victor Shapiro's calling it PCCB, so maybe that sticks. Just use the acronym.
PCCB.
The PCCB. We've
Oh
got the
boy.
QLE, the TLT, and the PCCB.
I love our group. It's got so many smart people in it, and they're very funny and smart asses. And it's if you haven't done so already, I'm like a public Slack critic because I don't think a business process should run on Slack, but that's a whole other rant that I won't bore you with right now. However, I will say that we all have Salesforce friends. Networking is a critical part of managing your career. This is just a little shameless plug. I offer career coaching services, by the way. Go to johngarvis.com/coaching and you could set up time and schedule it. That's the Stripe integration that puts time on my Calendly. And then you could talk to me about your career if you need to. Shameless plug, put my own commercials in here. Look at this shit. Ad reads. But your network is like everything. Who you know is so critically important. And creating a Slack workspace is free. Go make one. Sorry, you can't join mine. But we got enough people in there already. We probably need to whittle it down a little bit. But the create one and build a thriving community for yourselves. If you're an Experience Cloud person or you're a Service Cloud person, go find your other Experience Cloud or Service Cloud peeps. I will not call you service blazers. I'm sorry, that's a stupid word, and I hate the whole blazer thing
I
anymore.
fundamentally reject the whole agent blazer terminology, but that's a different podcast.
It's hard enough to convince people this is a real career. We don't need to go around with cartoon animals calling ourselves a blazer. Anyway, um, this
That's
okay.
probably a good place to wrap up.
Yeah. Last point though, some people are not quite sure about making the decision. One thing that I've found, and you found this too, Micah, that helps with these sorts of purchasing decisions is proofs of concept. Proofs of concept can vary in degrees from you've actually purchased Revenue Cloud licenses from Salesforce through your account executive. You signed on the line and you get like 5 licenses, and then you find a solution implementation partner like Micah or myself, and you'll work with us with, say, 100 hours of time to say, let's build as much stuff as we can to see if this product can handle what we need. You can almost think of it like an insurance policy. Hopefully, this money is well spent and it's provided the foundation and the starting point for our actual implementation, which we can also do. Let's do the proof of concept, trying to find like what the right solution is, and then great, we got that. Now let's do an implementation project. We learned a ton from the proof of concept, and now we're ready to move forward. Along the way, you get advisory services with something like that as well, so that you could say, well, what should we do here? I don't really know. We haven't thought about that. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of decisions we have to make in these projects. And a proof of concept can not only help you understand that the product can work for your business and support the way that your business does business, but it can also surface a lot of the isolated and siloed tribal knowledge stuff where Micah knows about the way we do business over here, but I have no idea because we've never worked together. It pulls the teams together and it starts to raise some issues, and sometimes sparks those difficult conversations, those uncomfortable conversations where sales goes, "Oh, the product is sold like this," and then legal goes, "You can't sell it like that," and finance is going, "How am I supposed to recognize that revenue if you do that?" And product is going, "We didn't design the product to be that way." You have those conversations. They're very important to have. So a proof of concept slash advisory services for making these purchases can be a valuable and wise use of money. It's a shameless plug for us, of course, but it's money well spent. Is it better to just say, sure, we're going to buy the software and do a giant implementation and whatever it costs? Or do you want to hedge your bets a little bit, buy some insurance in a sense, metaphorically, in the sense of a proof of concept and some advisory services to make sure that you're making the right choice for your company at the right time and that you're getting the right tool and the right people to implement it. Uh, Micah?
I think that's certainly a wise step. I think if you're going to do that, you need to have very clear criteria um,
Yeah.
out front. You're going to have some important conversations. You're going to see where maybe there's disconnect among different functions, roles, departments within the business. But I think one of the main goals of doing the POC is see where your risk is, see where your gaps are. Um, be aware of the more what you think will be the more challenging use cases. That doesn't mean start out with and say everything fails unless our most complex use case is supported coming out of this POC. That's really not,
No.
that's taking on more than you really need to. If your goals are to de-risk a program, to instill confidence that this is the right tool for the business at the right time, be very clear with those objectives
Yeah.
and look for, what are the areas we're concerned about? What are the areas we want to actually build and see working? And what are some pieces that we can build that won't be throwaway work, that'll be foundational, that we can take into an actual build if we want to go there.
Yeah.
And I think along those same lines, if you don't want to do the POC route, if you feel comfortable enough that it's the right solution, what I'm spending a good amount of time doing, and I think many others are as well, is you need to plan to get blocked. You're going to have like you were saying before, there are no consulting firms out there anywhere that have a bunch of live RCA customers yet.
No.
That'll happen, but there aren't any yet. There are some that have go live, maybe two, um, that are working on many RCA projects, but we don't have a lot of historical data to draw from. The tool is moving very quickly. And so be realistic about the fact that your core project team are going to hit blockers that weren't expected and that are going to need
It's a
someone
project.
that are going to need their own tiger team or own specific person to go in and dig into. That's what I am spending a good amount of time doing for a couple of different partners. Is they get blocked. It's very small amount of hours or just on retainer.
Yeah.
Like, hey, buy a block of hours, and then if we need you, come come dig into this. It's something small, but it's important. Plan for that kind of stuff because that can throw off your whole schedule. And it's hard to resource for those in advance. But they're again another kind of insurance policy, even without necessarily doing a POC type approach, you just go right into the implementation.
Yeah.
Have that friend that you can phone. Be prepared for that. That's not necessarily built into your core time and materials project team. Someone that you can call in on demand. There are plenty of people out there and organizations out there that can help you with that.
Yeah.
But you're going to get blocked, and you're not going to know when. And it's probably going to be in places that you don't expect that maybe you thought would have been easy within RCA.
At
But
timing that you don't like. It's
yeah,
not convenient. As it's a project after all. That's how projects work. Yeah, the retainer model works very well. Even with my current client, I moved from doing a POC of CPQ, which we ruled, hey, it's not the right fit for your business. But Revenue Cloud is, and we knew that because we did a POC for Revenue Cloud immediately following that, which turned into a full implementation product with another partner, much bigger and better implementing than me. I can do it, but they have more resources available. But I'm still on the project because I'm that trusty sidekick of my stakeholders with my client. They know that they can come to me to either, like you said, dig into very specific pieces. So, how should we deal with our partners? What should our license and permission models set up be? Create a framework for us to help us manage that. I'm going to help them hire their person who's going to admin this beast when they're done. So, that's going to be a fun piece as well. So, somebody who can do that, it's not part of the SOW, but it still needs to happen. But you need somebody who's now I'm on retainer with them for until about September as another voice in the room. 8 hours a week. It's not a massive spend in the grand scheme of the budget for these projects, but it's a valuable use of spend because you have somebody who's more impartial, who can be there keeping both your customer stakeholders and your consulting stakeholders and your Salesforce stakeholders. Everybody's accountable. It's like I feel like I'm Herb Dean in the UFC refereeing a fight. We all want this to be a fair fight. We want a good fight, clean fight, all this other stuff. But every now and then you gotta, hey, watch those eye pokes.
Herb,
Anyway,
Herb Dean's the goat anyway, so it's
I met
good.
him once. Very nice, chill guy. Yeah. And with that, the Freeport martial arts is way more fun to talk about than Revenue Cloud. I'll just go on record and say that.
You're
Anyway,
not wearing your Freeport shirt, but I guess you guys
no,
are.
but I am a Gracie Allegiance, Clark Gracie. It's a jiu-jitsu shirt nonetheless. But thanks for listening today, folks. Feel free. Micah's website, Blue Robot Digital, Micah Gerker. You can find him on LinkedIn. You can find me pretty easy too. I'm easily Googleable. And reach out. Let us know if we can help in any way. And we're happy to point you in the right direction, whether that's us or it's somebody we know.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
All right, bye.